Morning. I tell you, one of the biggest highlight of my week is coming to church on Sunday morning and to be able to worship with you guys. Tremendous crowd here this morning. And let me tell you, I was standing in the back for a little bit during worship and just seeing everybody get engaged in the worship. You know, that's what it's all about. We don't come here to perform for you. We don't come here to have a production or a show and just to have you sit there and not be engaged. But what's great is when we can come to the house of God and engage in worship with one another, our church family. It's exciting, it's fun, and it's one of the highlights of my week. This has been a real busy time the past couple of weeks. FIFA World Cup has been going on. I've been stuck in front of the TV. My son's recording, taking up all the DVR time. And now my wife can't record any shows or anything because Dre's you can't because I have Brazil and Mexico on here. You can't erase that. So anyway, busy times. And what's really cool, for those of you who live under a rock and don't know what the World Cup is right now, it's like the Olympics of soccer. Every 4 years, it comes around and it's huge. And while the U.S. have been playing these past couple of games and they've been able to advance into the knockout round, which nobody thought that they would be able to get to, what's really cool is they've been showing pictures of the American people back home in the United States because they're playing down in Brazil, I believe. Huge groups, thousands of people coming together to support their team, to support the United States of America. Kansas City has an MLS soccer team, and two of their players is on the men's team playing in Brazil. And they have this area in Kansas City that's just massively packed with people cheering and showing their support. And there's other huge cities across the country, and people gather and they watch these games for hours on end, and they show their support to their team, and they let them know that they're there for them. These players know that back home there are individuals and there are cities and there are hundreds and thousands and millions of people cheering them on, rooting for them to do their best. And that's all that they ask for them, is just to do their best. And that is so cool to me whenever the TV goes to those cities and shows them cheering and oohing, and then all of a sudden, it's amazing. And I begin to think, when I knew that I was going to speak this morning, I had an idea of what I wanted to talk about. And I had worked on it, and I'm a little different. I don't like to sit in front of the computer and sit in front of a stack of books and just do a ton of research. What I like to do is I like to get a thought, a central theme of what I want to talk about, and back it up by the Word of God and a couple of illustrations, and just kind of leave it to you all as a congregation, leave it to you all as individuals to make the choice of what you want to do. If you want to serve God or if you don't, we can't make you. It's totally up to you all, And I sat down last night and I had all these thoughts going through my head over the past couple of weeks, and I like for them just kind of, marinate in my head, everything kind of come together, And God said, scrap it. He said, this is what I want you to talk about. And I was like, are you serious? It's 10:30 at night. And he said, yes, this is what. And he began to lead me and to navigate me through different passages of Scripture and different illustrations. And this is what I wanted to talk to you today about. So just over the next few minutes, I want to let you know that God is there for you. And he's telling you this morning that I am with you. I am with you. There's a gentleman in the Old Testament, totally opposite of what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to go to the New Testament. God sent me to the Old Testament. His name is Joshua. Many of you know the story of Joshua. He's the youngest to Jacob, his father. At the time, he was Jacob's favorite. He would do anything for his son Joshua. And Joshua had other brothers. And it was like a dysfunctional family, okay? He had 11 brothers or so, and comes from 3 or 4 different moms, and they're all, the boys are always fighting. And if you have sons, multiple sons, you know what I'm talking about. I have multiple daughters. I know what he's talking about. They fight all the time. And so Joshua, at this point in time, he's like 17 years old. Hothead. He's a cocky little punk. He's telling his brothers all this stuff. He knows he's his dad's favorite. I mean, his dad had a special coat made just for him to wear. None of the other brothers got this, but Joshua did. And so at this point in time, Joshua's like, hey, listen up, brothers. I got a story to tell you. I had a dream. And this dream is, there's these huge deals of wheat, bundles of wheat. And they're all bowing down, and they're bowing down to me. And he goes, I think that might be you all. And they're like, you're crazy, because we're never going to bow down to you at all, ever. Later on, some time passed, and he has another dream. And this time he tells his dream in front of his brothers and his father. And his father rebukes him and says, you're crazy, that's nuts. There's no way that your family's going to bow down to you. But there was a little bit in Jacob's mind but what exactly does this mean? Why is my youngest son having these dreams for? Story of Joshua continues to go on, and his brothers are all out tending some sheep. They're shepherding, and Jacob sends Joshua just to check on them, just to see what's going on, to make sure they're all doing okay, to do what they're supposed to be doing. And as Joshua begins to head that direction, there was a point in time where his brothers seen him coming from afar. They seen him coming from a distance. And they begin to plot to take his life. Now, I don't know about you. There's times in my life where I fought with my brother, I fought with my sister. There was points in my life maybe where I may have hated them just a little bit for a brief moment in time, but I don't believe I ever plotted to kill my brother or sister. Okay? So there was some serious hatred going on there from his brothers. So when he came up, they said, hey, we're gonna go ahead and take him. And one of the brothers said, no, let's not. I mean, he is our flesh and blood. Let's just throw him down a little well here and just leave him to die. Okay. Like, that's better than just killing him, right? So then that's what they decide to do. They take him, they take his special coat off, they throw him down this well, and they leave him to die. They bloody up his coat. That was the plan, the magnificent plan of his brothers, and they were going to take it back to his father and saying that he was attacked by a wild animal. There was a group of travelers that came by, some tradesmen. And instead of killing him, they decided to go ahead and sell Joshua to these individuals. Now, they sold him for 20 shekels of silver. And I'm like, I wonder how much 20 shekels of silver is. Well, back then, this was the normal amount that a male of his age was worth. $5 in today's time. $5. They sold their son, their brother Joshua, for $5. For less than 2 gallons of gas today. That's what they got out of him. And these traders, they take Joshua, they take him from everything that he's ever known, and they take him to a land that he's never been, to a place called Egypt. And they sell him to Potiphar. Now, Potiphar was an elite person in Egypt with the king Pharaoh, who was the king of Egypt. And this is where it really begins to get interesting with Joshua. Because he grew up with God. He grew up with his dad, knowing all the stories, knowing the relationship that is so important to have with God, to trust him, to rely on him. And yeah, he was a punk kid, but he still knew what was taught to him. Us as parents, we worry about our kids when they begin to get older and they begin to do things. I'm here to tell you this morning, don't stop praying for them, because Jacob didn't stop praying for Joshua when he found out that he was gone. He continued to pray for him. Your kids will come back to what they've been taught. They will not depart from what God has taught them and told them. In chapter 39 of Genesis, this is where I think the story really begins to unfold with Joshua. In verse 2 it says, the Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of the Egyptian master. And his master saw that the Lord was with him. Everything that Potiphar had Joseph do, Joseph did it to the best of his ability, because that's what his dad had taught him all these years. And Joseph began to work and to do the things that he was supposed to do, and he was blessed by God, and everything that he did was blessed. And Joseph was placed above everything in the house of Potiphar, because Potiphar trusted him, and he knew that God was with him. So much that Joseph began to take priority over all of the property of Potiphar. In other words, everybody went to Joseph, and then Joseph addressed to Potiphar. Well, there was a time where Joseph was at the house, and Potiphar's wife had been looking at him and had been lusting after him and wanted to be with him. And Joseph said, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I serve Potiphar. He's my master. He's the one I serve. I'm not going to dive into that sin. It's against what God has for me. And this goes on for a period of time. Joseph gets cornered at some point in time in the house, and he runs and he flees and he drops a piece of his garment, and Potiphar's wife is so furious and frustrated at him because she feels rejected that she begins to make up a lie and tell a story that he came in and he was going to rape her and this and that. And Potiphar he got so mad at Joseph that he had him thrown in prison. Later on in the chapter, in the story, it says, but the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. So the Lord was with Joseph during the time at Potiphar's house. The Lord was with Joseph during the time while he was in prison for something that he didn't commit, for something that he didn't do, and he was thrown in there wrongly and unjustly. And while in prison, he just went about his business, though he didn't like it there, though he felt like he didn't deserve it and it was unfair, he still did what he was told to do. And the prison warden seen that and seen that God was with Joseph, and he placed him over everything in the prison. All the prisoners had to go to Joseph, and then Joseph went to the prison warden. All because of the relationship that Joseph had with God. No matter how bad things got, no matter what the times called for, he still relied on God and knew that God was going to be there for him and be there with him. There's time where there's a couple of gentlemen that come into the prison, and Joseph really hasn't done anything with dreams for a while. But they have these dreams, and Joseph is able to interpret these dreams. He says, one of you is going to be taken back into where you were taken from the Pharaoh, and the other one, you're going to die. And lo and behold, it was 3 days later whenever that exact thing happened. And Joseph told the guy that he said was going to live, said, don't forget about me here. I've been put in here wrongly. Don't forget about me here. Put in a good word for me so I can get out of here. Time passes. The guy forgets totally about Joseph. Pharaoh begins to have these dreams, and his wise men and his counselors cannot interpret these dreams at all. And this baker says, oh yeah, I've done something very, very wrong here. There's a gentleman that I know that can interpret your dreams. He interpreted the time that you threw me in prison and then you brought me back out. He told me exactly what would happen. So they bring Joseph out. Pharaoh tells Joseph these dreams about the 7 good cows and the 7 bad cows. And Joseph interprets those, saying you're going to have 7 great years of wealth. Everything is going to be fine. Everything is going to be great. And after that, you're going to have 7 bad years of famine. There's not going to be anything in the land. And everybody is going to be coming to you for everything, and you're not going to have anything. That's what's going to happen. That's what those dreams mean. Pharaoh was so touched and knew that that was God speaking through Joseph that he placed Joseph second in command over all of Egypt. Okay, so at 17 years old, he was sold into slavery. He was hated by his brothers so much that they wanted to kill him. They sold him for $5, today's amount. Sold into slavery to Potiphar. Took him to a land that he had never been to. People were talking in language he didn't understand. He had to figure all of this stuff out. Taken to Potiphar's house. Did well. Got set up. Thrown back into prison. And now he is over Egypt, second in the command. Everybody had to go to Joseph for anything and everything. He was in charge of the money. He was in charge of all the grain. He was in charge of everything. He had his own chariot. How about that? The thing is, God never left Joseph, did he? Though there was times, there's a 13-year span. At the age of 30, he was placed second in command in Egypt. There's 13 years there where Joseph, he probably thought he was going through hell on earth. Slavery, serving people he didn't want to serve, doing things he didn't want to do. He was hated by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, accused of a crime he didn't commit. He had been ripped from his home and everything that he had ever known. But the one thing that stayed true with Joseph is that he continued to serve God, and his relationship was at the forefront of his life. He would reflect on his life and remember the times that God had brought him out. He remembered the times where God was with him, and he continued to serve him and continued to do the best that Joseph could possibly do. The story goes on where Joseph, he succeeds in everything that he does. He succeeded. His brothers end up, during the 7 years of the bad famine, his brothers end up coming to seek grain, to seek food from them, because Egypt is the only place that housed and prepared for this. And over a time of dialogue and over a period of time, he was able to reconcile with his family and to reconcile with his brothers. He was able to meet his dad again. And he was able to spend time, I believe, for another 13 to 14 years before his dad had passed away. God never left Joseph. Earlier in Genesis, there's a point where Jacob, his father, is working for Laban. And God tells Jacob, hey, you need to go to your homeland, and I will be with you. He was with his father. He was with him. He's with you today. No matter what you've gone through, no matter where you're at in your relationship with God, God is telling you, I am with you. Do not worry about the circumstances that face you today. Do not worry about the situations that you're going to face tomorrow, because I am with you. I'm with you always. I've never left you. Though we've taken time off. We've taken time off from God. I can speak that for myself. I've put God on the back burner. I've put that relationship with Him on the back burner. But God never left me. I'm the one that left God. Through your mourning over a loss, God is with you. Through your rejoicing over a promotion, God is with you. Through your frustration, He says, I am with you. Through your joy, He is with you. Through your depression, He is with you. Through your happiness, He is with you. God has never left you. And He never will leave you. There's an illustration. I got permission to tell this illustration. There's a family that didn't attend church, but the dad knew better. He had grew up in church. He grew up with a relationship with God in a Christian home, but he got married, had some kids, life happened, things started vying for the time of church, and before you knew it, the family was no longer in church, and they were doing anything and everything, not realizing what had really happened and what caused them to get out of church and to pull them away from that relationship with God. And the dad sat there one day, and he realized, he reflected on his life, and he realized that there was a point in time that he served God and that God was with him. And over a stretch of time, he didn't serve God. He had left. Some things happened personally to his life, and he realized and he knew deep down that God never left him. He was still with him, protecting him, trying to show him the way. He woke up one Sunday morning, woke his family up, and said, today we're going to church. Today we're going to start a new life. Today we're starting out brand new. They came into church. It was in the middle of the worship time. His family found a couple of seats. He bypassed the seats and went straight to the front. He knelt down at the altar and gave his heart back to God. Promised God that he would serve him no matter what came about. No matter what things tried to deter him from that relationship, he promised God that he would lead his family the only way that he knew how, and that was by serving God. The pastor prayed for him. He felt like 1,000,000 pounds had been lifted off his shoulders. He left church with his family, had a great rest of the day. The dad went out to go to the grocery store, and he never came back. Had a car accident, killed instantly. His family knew that God was with them. They knew because they seen their dad and they seen their husband go to the front and give his heart and life back to God. And even though there was a time of sorrow, and even though there was a time of mourning, and a time of why they couldn't understand why he was taken so abruptly, they knew that God was with him, and they knew that God was with them. And I ask you today, through everything that you've been through in life, do you feel like God has left you? Through the decisions that you've made, maybe it's been work related, maybe it's family related. Do you feel that way? But I'm here to tell you, God is with you. He'll never leave you. Everybody's standing this morning. In Isaiah chapter 41, I think this is one of the coolest passages of scriptures that a person can read. If you need to be motivated, if you need to be reassured, if you need to feel the love of God, maybe you need to be picked up because you've been knocked down. Isaiah 41, beginning with verse number 8, says this, "But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the offspring of Abraham, my friend, you whom I took from the ends of the earth and called from its farthest corners, saying to you, you are my servant. I have chosen you and not cast you off. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand." We stand here today telling you God is with you. He is with you. He is with you in everything of your life. God is with you.